We're back. And this week, we're diving deep into the return of the show and what that even means. Caperdoodle, do that, dandy. The return of the show. Slowly and terrifyingly, the world is beginning to return to normal, whatever that means. TV shows and movies are filming again, and live shows are returning to max capacity crowds. Earlier this month, tragedy struck one of these events and we lost 10 kids at Astroworld in Houston. Before that, the news cycle was dominated by the Rust set accident when Alec Baldwin unknowingly fired a real loaded gun on set, killing Halyna Hutchins. Everyone here at Geeklife has some tie to the entertainment industry in some fashion. Some of us work on film sets. Some of us do live concerts. So this week we wanted to talk about the return of the show. First, we got to talk about Astroworld. Anyone want to give a rundown of the events?
Um, yeah, from what I heard or from what I remember, it was nuts. There was something like allegedly 50,000 people there. Allegedly, who knows how many more snuck in or how many weren't accounted for.
Hmm.
Security was underwhelmed. I mean, sorry, overwhelmed, understaffed as
Hmm.
expected, giving a lot of, mandates for vaccinations, etc. And a tragedy struck, right? Like
A 1000%.
10 people died, and basically what was like a stampede of people just, and then one
Right,
domino falls and etc.
right. It's
Yeah.
it was a bit of a mess, and we're gonna get into a little bit more of it in a little bit here. But um, how do you think this tragedy could have been avoided, Bronwyn?
So I think there are a lot of factors. I think that first off, it's a lot of people. The fact
Hmm.
that these venues and these spaces, they kind of think more about the dollar amount rather than the safety of people. If
Hmm.
they try to jam as many people as they can in one space. I think that having these festivals that are really centered around one artist or one genre of music are dangerous, and the fact that every single person in that count of like 50,000 plus people is going to be at one stage at one time. Whereas if you had something a little bit more varying in genres at a festival, then you'd have certain amount of the attendees at one stage, while another amount of the attendees are at the other stage. You have a little bit more flow. You have a little bit more like less crowded stages. So the fact that
Yeah.
it was just this ego fest for one artist where everyone was there to see the one artist, you had all the people at the festival in one place at one time, which is a dangerous amount of people. I haven't looked at the setup of how it was because I used to work for Golden Voice and I did
Hmm.
not security for festivals, but I did box office for like Coachella and Stagecoach and all their festivals.
Hmm.
But they have like different kind of like barricades set up like throughout the space. So it's not just
Yeah.
like one huge crowd. There are these spaces that are kind of broken up so people aren't as smashed up against each other. I'm not quite sure what they were doing about that. I also know you're mentioning being understaffed. It's really hard to find workers right now in a lot of capacities, like to find servers, to find security staff, to find like it's just hard to find people to employ right now, or who want to work for a minimum wage amount.
Hmm.
Um, I do know that there were a lot of medical staff there, but I'm not sure, are these highly trained medical staff or are there people who are like trying to fill a position and they're giving them like training
Yeah.
weeks before the event? I think some of that was happening. So kind of making sure that the staff that you have is well prepared for the crowd. I think that one of the biggest factors though in this for me is communication.
Hmm.
You should have people on the ground of the festival who are seeing what's happening, relaying that to security who are like on the stage, who are close to the artists, who are close to that, where there should be that line of communication so things don't get this out of hand and just like I was just completely appalled when I heard this story.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was a lot to take in. Well, what about you, Kev? What do you think could have been done to avoid what happened?
I mean, obviously, hindsight being what it is, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, just like the event in general. But if
Right.
we're saying if it is going to happen, I mean, I think that's the only way, right? Like, I think if all variables aside, like it would happen again. If you go in there understaffed, underprepared, underestimating the sort of energy and amount of people that are going to just essentially go nuts from one, not necessarily having been to, I guess, festivals for lack of a better word, essentially just like a lot of pent up energy coming out one
Mhm.
place from an artist and the show and concert, I guess, or festival that kind of enables that, right? Like that's just like Travis Scott's MO in a way. It's just like raging and like just going fucking crazy. Um,
Right.
so I think just having all that, um, somebody knew, like I'm sure somebody had to have been advised that this is a bad idea, and someone just looked the other way or kind of ignored him. So that I mean I think that's my sort of 2 cents. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
And like an artist on the stage has this incredible ability to
Mm-hmm.
hypnotize a crowd.
Yeah.
So I think that if like there was a way to communicate to the artist this is happening, the crowd's getting too rowdy, that they are able to, with their music choice,
Mm-hmm.
the lighting designers are able to, like with that platform,
Mm-hmm.
calm people down. Like you
Yeah.
have the ability to control an entire like the entire energy of an incredible amount of people. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if that communication was there, then he would have like easily been able to mellow out a crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd agree with that.
Okay. Um, I have thoughts about that, and I actually don't agree with that. Having been on stage and having a set already, planned as far as the show is concerned, and things like that, it's kind of hard to switch. It's good, to always have, an audible or something like that to switch things up if things need to be, done in that way. But we're gonna get into a little more of, because there's a question later about accountability, and I'll get into like what I actually feel about everything when we get there. But yeah, what could have been done to avoid everything is there shouldn't have been as many people. I mean, COVID's still a very real thing. Um, there should have been communication with Travis Scott's production team and with the venue. And there should have been some transparency as far as what realistically could have happened or what they could do. But we'll go to that. Like I said, we'll get to that in a moment here. So with that being said, though, what have you seen at concerts or events that you've been to that either helped or hurt safety? Kev?
Um, None really. I haven't really been to any shows. Mostly because I have my own reservation still. Um,
Right.
um, and uh, yeah. So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask. I mean,
That's fair.
just I guess like from a common sense angle, like if you just don't have the staff to control it, then you don't have the staff to control it, right? Like
Right.
I think too many times you have to it's like a risk versus reward assessment.
100%.
And the assessment is always going to favor the dollar, right? Where it's like, I mean, we saw it. LeBron even said at the end of the day, they're not going to risk not making money at the expense of someone may or may not get hurt or even die, right?
Right.
They're
Absolutely.
like it's hubris at the end of the day. It's like there's no way it's going to happen to us. Like this is fucking insert artist name X, right? Like,
Right. Right. 100%.
yeah.
What about you, Bron?
So are we talking about like strictly post COVID or pre COVID, just like events in general?
Yes, let's just say yes. So like both. What have you
Both. Okay,
seen that has either helped or hurt safety?
so I am just completely appalled by all of this because I've been to so many concerts and
Hmm.
worked at so many concerts, even pretty rowdy ones. Like I've been in mosh pits at like metal shows before
Yeah.
and felt completely safe.
Yeah.
Um, and like when I'm going to a concert and thinking about safety, like this has never really been one of the things that have crossed my mind. Usually I'm thinking of safety in the sense of having resources to help people who are
Hmm.
like having a bad trip and like taking them to like a little chill out zone and calming them down. I'm thinking of safety in the sense of having enough water. And I've been to certain festivals where they didn't have water stations, I think, in the right areas, or like we're thinking about that. Uh, have never been like concerned with getting trampled to death at a concert.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's never been one of those things where I'm looking out at that
Yeah.
safety of that. Maybe, like I said earlier, just having those spots to break up the crowd, having barricades kind of like throughout instead of just one barricade at the front. That way you don't have every single person against the whole crowd. And you can do
Yeah.
that in a way that's not like a wall. You can have like an art structure here, like a cool like statue or installation, like a little bit in the back there. Like you can break the
Yeah.
crowd up in ways that are still stimulating and interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like
No.
natural barriers, except
Yeah, I think
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
No, it's a that's definitely something that can be done, and I agree with that. Having something more than just the one barrier that's in the front, but something that's like I've seen that's been incredibly helpful because I was just performing at Blue Ridge Rock Festival. That was the biggest rock festival in the country at the time, a couple of months ago, and you're talking about every day there was 40,000 people. You know what I
Mhm.
mean, throughout the day. So you're talking about, and that was a 4-day festival. So you're looking at 120,000 people, like accumulative, you know what I'm saying, throughout the festival. But the way that they had things sectioned off was really, really nice. Everyone wasn't together. Security was, tight. But when you want to talk about something that, that helped was like having things barricaded, having enough security up front to be looking out for things that are going on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, and that's very helpful, but something that's also hurtful, and we'll talk about this is during and post COVID, not having the bodies there. One of the
Yeah.
things that happened in that festival that I was at, 3,000 people that were supposed to do security failed.
Wow.
So you're talking about, I'm at an event where 300 men down, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying, on security. And they had to, try to get the local law enforcement in that town to try to, and they don't have 300 people, you know what I mean, that,
Yeah.
to fill the spot. But even with it being 300 people down, it still managed to be pretty decent. Now, some stuff happened, you know what I mean? But as far as I
Right.
know, no one passed away during that
Right.
show. There's, somebody OD'd, stuff that happens at, music festival, like there was something, other stuff that happened, but I don't think there were any fatalities. So, there's a lot of stuff. And I feel like things that are single artist central, centered should be a concert and not a music festival because there's a
Yeah.
lot more control in an arena than there
Yeah.
is in a wide open space. And that's just my thoughts there. So,
Even like I've been to Red Rocks, sold out shows at
yeah.
Red Rocks, which I think is 50,000 people. And like
Mhm.
that, because it's spaced out the way it is, you never feel like you're on top of another person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100% there. So here we go. When it comes to live events, who's more accountable for fan safety? The artist, the venue, or someone else? Ron?
I think it depends. I mean, I think it's the production company putting on the event, like the event production. That's the person who thinks about the safety. The venue, it's not the venue. You're renting out that space from somebody, and then they relinquish control past that point. It's like they're just like, here's the space. You implement what you implement.
Yeah.
But I think that in this circumstance, the artist does have some responsibility because it was his event. If this
Yeah.
was just Travis Scott playing at Coachella, then it would be Golden Voice's responsibility. But the fact that it's Travis Scott's event, I think it's him and AEG are the most accountable people in this circumstance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Kev, what about you?
Yeah, I think there's just blame to go around, right? Like, I think the easy target is, Travis Scott because it's his festival, and of
Right.
course he's accountable, or he's needs to be held accountable as well. But I think just everyone involved, from production to event planning to the labels to management, right? Like everyone, like there's plenty of blame to go around. This doesn't fall on one person, right? Like you
No,
don't have
not at all.
this massive catastrophe just from one individual unless they directly do something.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't want to cut you off because I'm about to go on my little tangent.
Yeah,
Oh wait,
no,
I
that's
want
it.
to
Yeah.
I want to correct myself 1 second. I said AEG, but it wasn't AEG. It was Live Nation.
Yeah, it's Live Nation.
Yeah, Live
100%.
Nation.
Because when you said it, I was like, I
Yeah,
think it was
no,
Live Nation.
yeah, it was Live Nation.
And right there, with Live Nation is the biggest promoter in the world. So you're talking about it was going to be popping. So you have 50. Let me answer the question first. Who do I believe is more accountable for fan safety, the artist, the venue, or someone else? The answer is yes. They're all accountable, and the someone else is the fans themselves. Because a rapper said this in a text, in a quote, and put it online. There are people who were stepping on other people and know they were stepping on people and knew who they were, and they haven't said anything because they don't want to get in trouble. Because at the end of the day, I understand that everything is the way that it is, but you've got people who willingly were
Yeah.
trampling other people.
Mhm.
There is nothing in that moment the artist can do anything about, the production team can do anything about. The only people that have any type of say so in that, if they see it, and that's if they see it, is security in that
Yeah.
moment. And that's that way they can then radio over to EMT and or EMS
Right.
and be like, yo, this is what's going on. You know what I mean? Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. We need to get some help in there. Everybody is responsible for this situation. The production company, yes, Travis Scott, yes, him. That's why he's responsible, because it is his production company. Him as an artist, I'm going to say this right now, as an artist being on stage and performing, you are not going to be able to tell if someone is dying when you're performing in front of 50,000 people. I don't care who you are. You, first off, it's nighttime and lights are off. If you've never been on stage performing with lights, you can't see. So it doesn't matter. And this is the thing that people don't want to talk about. There was a time where Travis saw someone pass out and he stopped the show. That same show where the people passed, someone passed out and he saw it and called EMS to come take care of that. But no one wants to talk about that because everybody wants to trash Travis. I'm not giving him a pass. It's his show. He should have known better, or the production team rather should have known better on how many seats they could fill. The venue, I'm going to give them fault too, because even though they relinquish control, the venue knows what they can and cannot do as far as capacity. COVID still is a very real thing. Even though things have opened up to full capacity, it's still like, okay, people, like you said, at the end of the day, people trying to make $1, people trying to get this back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you gotta be wise about this. You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot that's going on. And not, like you said, Kev, not just one person is responsible for this. There's a multitude of people that are responsible for this. Unfortunately, it happened the way that it happened. And Travis Scott, unfortunately, has to take the brunt of it because it was his production company, because they sold the tickets, they promoted the event, blah, 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 blah. And then you can't account for the people who snuck in, because that's going to happen. If you got 50,000 people showing up, you're going to go ahead and guesstimate another 5,000 people are going to just show up with no tickets. Somehow they're going to get in. You know what I mean? But you got to be able to provide the security for that venue too, because it is not the artist's job on stage to see what's happening in the crowd as far as a medical emergency. That's literally what EMS, there's people that exist for that job. And if you don't have the staff to do it, if you don't have the personnel on hand, don't do it to that capacity, or make it so that it's manageable. You feel what I'm saying? So this is just where I am. There's so many people to look and point blame at, but it doesn't bring anybody back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in this unfortunate situation, this is going to cause other production companies and venues to relook at their situation and make
Hmm.
sure that kind of thing doesn't happen again. So there will
Yeah.
be ultimately some good that comes from this, but it's unfortunate that it had to happen in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you guys believe COVID affected this, if at all?
Well, I think
Uh,
that events have been stopped for so long that they're just like super eager to start again. Artists have not been making like money on live
yeah.
performances for a whole year. So it's
Right.
just as soon as they're allowed again, they came
Yeah.
back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Kev?
No, I think she's hit the nail right on the head. I think that's what it is, right? It's that, and it's that uncertainty again of, what if we go in lockdown? I'm going to try and recoup my losses, for lack of better words, before it's too late again. So I think there's a
Mhm.
bunch to that, and then also sort of like the pent up angst of not being able to go to live shows and festival. I think that's kind of like is also a variable,
Yeah.
and it's yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with both of you 100%. So I piggyback off y'all because like I saw like Papa Roach, Rob Zombie, Jelly Roll, Cypress Hill, every, Rise Against, you know what I'm saying, Kill Switch Engage. I watched all these POD. I've watched all of these performers. They were so excited
Hmm.
to be back on stage again. Like in one way, it was cool as an up and coming artist to
Hmm.
see the excitement from a long seasoned professional. You know what I
Uh,
mean?
Hmm.
But I think it's literally because of like what you said, bro, and they haven't been on stage in over a year. And you know what I'm saying? So it's like they're jonesing to just do it again. You know what I mean? So they
yeah.
like kids in a candy shop. And I'm
Uh-huh.
sure with Travis Scott, he was so hype. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, let's get it. That
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. You feel me?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
once it becomes to light, it's like, oh my God, this happened. And
Yeah.
now things need to, be, changed. So COVID, I definitely has a direct effect on people's attitudes because not just the performers, the fans are excited to go to a live show because they haven't been to
Yeah.
a live show in
Oh
over a
my
year
god.
too. It's like I haven't been to a live show. I'm about to wild the fuck out
Yeah.
all night. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it's gonna be. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like it is what it is. But yeah, I honestly think COVID like 100% has something to do with it because also the mentality. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's like letting a caged beast free after being caged for a certain amount of time. There's going to be a lot of untamed wildness
Yeah.
before reality kicks in. And
It
Right.
should
I
have
saw
had
it.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say COVID should have had more to do with it because if people were more in that COVID mindset, then there wouldn't have been that many people at the event. They would have had a lowered capacity, don't you think? If that was more on people's minds.
I I honestly believe that regardless of COVID or not, people was ready. They was
Yeah,
just
I don't
ready
think
to
it
get it
mattered.
in.
Yeah,
Like
that's
I
why
feel
we're
like
not. That's why we're not out of this right now, right? Like I don't
yeah,
think people
like
give a fuck anymore.
exactly that reason because it's like because
Yeah.
even me, I like knowing that I was going to perform at a festival with six figures of people. You feel what
Hmm.
I'm
Mhm.
saying? That's a lot of people. Luckily for me, I was in an artist section of the grounds, so I wasn't in contact with the GA. You know what I mean? Or general admission for those who don't know. So I wasn't in that crowd of people. You know what I mean? It was
Hmm.
kind of like off to the side. You know what I'm saying? And when we got our artist badges and stuff like that, we had access to other stuff, and it's even less people. So it was kind of neat for us. But I would look out into the wave of people. I'm like, man, this is insane. Like I said, COVID is still such a real thing, and people clearly don't care. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like it's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
So I went to a music festival like a couple months ago in
Uh-huh.
California called what was it called? Same but different. It was at
Hmm.
like Lake Paris. It's kind of this lake in Southern California. And I'm not sure how many people were there. I think it was probably at most like 14,000 people. So it was pretty small. And it seemed like nobody was like on top of each other and everyone was super respectful of the space. You could get to the front of the crowd really easily if you wanted to have that like be that close to the action, and then you could like quickly get away from the crowd, and no one was like dancing on top of each other, and it felt really good, and it made me really. I was like, wow, like this is what post-COVID music festivals are gonna be like
Right.
Yeah.
nice and spaced out, and yeah, people weren't wearing their masks.
Yeah.
But still, like it never felt too crowded, and maybe that was just the nature of the festival, it being smaller. There were some big name artists, but it was definitely like a smaller turnout.
Mm.
Right. No,
And I
no,
think
no.
that was it sold out. Like so they intentionally made it smaller. Like all the tickets sold out, but they made sure they didn't oversell the event.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's smart. You know what I mean? Because you still get to have some show.
Mhm.
Not everybody going to attend, but the
Mhm.
people
Right.
that can will, and the performers still get to do their thing, and the audience gets to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Without it being ridiculously unsafe.
Yeah.
Ridiculously unsafe. I put in quotes. You know what I mean? Given everything that's going on. But with Rust, it was a non-union crew. Uh, do you think that had any role in what took place? Start with you, bro.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so I work pretty in the film industry, so I just feel very close to this story. And I have some mixed feelings about like non-union versus union. I don't think that non-union necessarily means that a set is um, dangerous or irresponsible.
Mhm.
I think that this set was, and there were like a lot of factors. I think the fact that they had the union walk out and then they tried to rush and fill those roles with unqualified people. I think that was a problem. I think that the set, even when it was a union set, when they still had people working there, wasn't a responsible set. I
Mhm.
mean, people were doing like target practice with real guns while they were shooting a movie. That all happened when they were still union workers there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think that they had a qualified armor on set, which is a standard practice you're supposed to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And even when people are on like a non-union set, they tend to still be practicing this like the level of protocol involved in a union set. It just mainly means that the workers like that you're allowed to hire like have to be a part of that union. So I don't think that because there were non-union workers this tragedy happened. I think that there was just a lot of factors in it.
Fair enough. And I'm with it on that. Kev, how
Mhm.
about you? Do you feel like it being a non-union crew had anything to do with the unfortunate mishap, tragedy?
I don't have any experience or knowledge into this type of stuff, so I'm gonna lean, I guess, more on you guys' expertise. Um, I think, um, I think it just seems like a perfect storm of everything that's happening. Uh, I think I I think it's an unfortunate thing to like have to not necessarily politicize, but use this as a point of an argument for either side that hey, it's your fault. As opposed to like you know actually figuring out what the hell happened, right? Like
Right.
everyone's using this as like a touch point or a target point or a speech point, but instead of like saying hey, how about we just not use guns on set, like
Right. Right.
like
Right.
maybe that could be an answer too.
Or like not
Or
have bullets with the guns
or
because
bullets, right?
people
Like
use like prop guns are
yeah,
usually real guns. Like
yeah, yeah.
that's
Why
not
is there ammo?
uncommon. It's like you can have a gun that's real, just don't have ammunition.
Yeah, that's the confusing part to me, and I don't think, and I mean I could be wrong, but I don't know like if that has anything to do with the staffing there. It's not like someone went out and like was like, "Fuck, I bought the wrong." Like I'm not trying to make light, but like bought the wrong bullets, right?
Mhm.
I mean I don't know. Like I just think like again, not my area of expertise, but I think I think the bigger issue is that like it's there shouldn't have been ammunition on the set in the first place, and just in general, I think
Mhm.
like that doesn't like unless there's something with they're using blanks and it's an unfortunate thing where manufacturing mishaps happen, one slips through the crack and then it's literally just the worst luck in the world.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so a lot of times like the actor in that situation, like they're super in their role and they're not going to be like doing all the like things to check always. They're kind of like
Mhm.
entrusting that someone else is checking those things because they're like in that mindset. But like there is supposed to be somebody who checks the gun. The AD, assistant director, is not supposed to just like hand grab a random gun and like hand it to the actor and tell them it's
Yeah.
cold. It's like, no, you have somebody who is picking up the weapon, opening the
Yeah.
chamber, checking everything, especially with a shot like that. It wasn't a
Hmm.
shot where they were shooting out into the wilderness where they could
Yeah.
afford to be careless. They were
Right.
directing that gun at the camera and shooting. You don't think you
Yeah.
would take an extra 5 fucking seconds to look inside the chamber to make sure there wasn't a bullet in there? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And like, just because you're like, what is it? Her dad was some famous armorer. Like, that
Yeah.
doesn't make her an armorer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
she wasn't even the one who gave him the gun. It was the AD.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't happen,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And I can get the union standpoint because one thing about it being like being a union set is that people have very clear roles and their roles don't blur.
Hmm.
Um, and then when you're like on non-union, sometimes you wear like more hats. So I kind of get it from that perspective. But the fact that this all happened during like the IATSE like protests and all that, it just like the timing of it made it into a
Hmm.
political thing. I don't think that this was a like this should be turned into a political thing. I think
Hmm.
that this should be for union sets and for non-union sets, they should be safe. And
Yeah.
this should not happen.
Correct.
And there should be like safety protocols that people follow. Like don't have live ammunition on set and
Yeah.
check your guns. Even if you don't have live ammunition on set, check your guns anyway. If you're about to
Yeah.
point and shoot at a camera, double check and make sure there's no bullets in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are endless amount of ways that unfortunate situation could have been avoided. Um, coming from a background where my father was in law enforcement, so I know how to handle, a weapon properly, know how to give a weapon to someone properly, making sure that whether loaded or unloaded, it's checked and everything is good to go. And like you said, it doesn't take long to just check the rack real quick and just rack rack the if it's a was it a revolver that was used, or was it a slide action slide bolt,
I'm not
like,
sure.
so
I'm
like
not sure.
in either case, it takes no time to rack your weapon. It takes no time to rack a pistol. It takes no time to look into a chamber, the spindle of your revolver and check. And actually, it's even easier to look into that to see if there's something there. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? To make it safe to use.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, somebody lost their life because of carelessness. And the
Hmm.
thing that upsets me more than anything else is the point and blame game for, you know, why it happened. It's
Yeah.
like, look, at this point, make sure that moving forward, you know what I mean? We don't have this issue with any
Hmm.
set. Like you said, Bron, union or non-union. Like this is acting. You know what I'm saying? This is not the real thing. You know what I mean? People are coming on set to work, and it's not just the actors, it's everyone that's involved with the production. You know what I mean? And it's
Mhm.
a shame you came to work to film something or a movie and you don't get to go home because someone was careless.
Yeah.
And like union or non, it's it's disgusting. And
Yeah.
heart goes out to Halyna Hutchinson's family, loved ones. For real, this is just me being transparent for a second. Um, I'm sorry. I wish you all well. And Yeah, I pray that the film industry does better moving forward, union or
Yeah.
not. And that's all I have for that. Um, what do you think this means for shows and sets going forward, Kev?
Um, well, I mean, you've kind of seen it, right? Where like Dwayne Johnson came out and said that they're not using real weapons anymore, or
Right.
majority of it's going to be CGI. I think there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be much, and I guess for sets that still do it, because there will be some sets that still use it just for budget purposes.
100%.
I'm assuming. I'm assuming there's just going to be even more due diligence, right? Like this isn't the first time it's happened. You think of Brandon Lee,
Yeah, 100%.
so I think it's going to be a combination of the both, to where CGI might be come in play a little bit more, and also just a more dedicated staffing to making sure that there's no live ammunition on set.
Right. Right. What
Yeah,
about you?
I think
What you about? Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I oh yeah. So I think it goes beyond to just ammunition and just weapons because I mean I went to work right after this happened. I was filming a commercial in Colorado, a car commercial, and
Mhm.
we weren't using weapons or anything, but it's just nice, pretty shots of a car driving through some mountain passes. But like that could be dangerous to film. Like we're using these fast cars on uh, precarious turns and going off-roading and all this stuff with these precision drivers. So definitely going to work after this happened was like a very like you start every day before you work. We start with a safety meeting that as actually led ironically considering the situation is led by the AD. That's one of their jobs is to lead a safety meeting every morning.
Wow.
And yeah.
Wow.
So that first safety meeting after this news broke was pretty like serious. Like there was just this somber note about everybody who like understood what happened, and we kind of just like, especially being on production, like we wanted to make sure that people felt as safe as possible. That yeah, we know people are like driving to and from work at like super early hours before the sun comes up, especially the locations where we were filming at that weren't near any cities. So some people were driving like an hour, like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then they have to drive home at like 7 p.m. So just
Yeah.
wanted to make people feel like really, really safe, and like if they ever felt in danger, like they would let us know. So I think that like the safety protocols that come like could go beyond just gun safety or weapons and kind of bleed more into a safer set in all aspects.
Right. Um,
Yeah.
agreed. I feel that with the Travis Scott situation and the rest situation, like I said earlier, uh, these unfortunate events will spawn some good moving forward because people are going to be more safe and more conscious about certain things on set, live performances, whatever, what have you. But it's very unfortunate that it takes death
Yeah.
to come to that conclusion. Someone literally, or someone's persons literally have to die for you to make a decision, a conscious decision that maybe we shouldn't do things this way, or maybe we need to make some serious adjustments.
Mhm.
It's
And
like everyone was
yeah,
inside for a year and they forgot like life is
Yeah.
dangerous and like these
Yeah.
things can happen. It's like
right,
how do I live again?
Yeah.
right,
Like
Yeah. That's fair.
yeah,
oh my
Yeah.
yeah.
gosh.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, so
I've noticed it
that
driving. Jesus, traffic
oh
sucks.
my
yeah,
gosh.
it's so
Yeah.
bad.
People forgot how to
It's
It's so
drive.
bad
so
out here.
bad in LA.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Oh my
It's
gosh.
worse. It's bad
It's
here in
yeah,
DC
it's
too.
bad in DC too. It's